Thank you so much. Hari Om, everyone. Hari Om. We'll get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusantatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Tvajvalito Pranamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sanghapada Kramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Datkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam Navidu Sura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyah Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So welcome everyone. We are towards coming to the last third of the 8th chapter. And we see in this where Lord Krishna is reminding us how we should be really looking at the world in which we live in. You know, as we live in this world, we are so drawn to the glamour of the world, on what I can get from the world. So in this chapter, he is slowly trying to shift our attention in how we can look at the world with constantly remembering that everything is nothing but that Ishvara. So keeping that Ishvara Smaranam in us, he starts to give us a lot of instructions. And of course, there is so much amount of logic with which he's telling us by looking at this world with this Ishvara Smarana Bhava, we will be able to truly appreciate everything and understand also the purpose of our human birth. You know, this human birth that we all have received, or this complex human machine that we have received, is there to really exhaust all our purva karma, you know, all the purva vasanas. That is why we have taken this birth. But we also have this 5 senses which tends to get attracted to the world. And through these 5 senses, we tend to take in a lot of these impressions. And because of these impressions, we think that that is what is happiness. And we forget the actual purpose that we came in. And by taking in all these impressions, it is sort of preparing us for more and more and more new births, you know. So that is how we are leading our lives. So last week, when we finished our session, we actually talked about the aspect of how the world, as beautiful as it is also things which are there, which we need to be cognizant about. Because if we are not cognizant about, then what happens is this glamour of the world takes over and we forget what this world really is about, right? So I thought we should start today with discussion of that six defects of the world, you know. So our reflection time today is going to be is yes, of course, the samsar is a wonderful place to live in. We know that, and especially, you know, when you're living in places like India and United States, you see such great beauty of the whole world, you know. Like even in such a densely populated place like India where we live in, but this ashram where I'm right here, when you see the beautiful greenery and you hear the birds chirping, like right now it is, you know, 7 o'clock, right? And even as I was preparing for this lecture this morning, you hear this wonderful birds chirping, and you feel that, wow, this is such a great world. I can just live here forever, you know. But then, in keeping with, we have to understand also how we live, right? So this is where in Shloka 15, you know, he says about how Ananya Chetaha Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashaha Tasya Aham Sulabhaha Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yoginaha. So I have to live in this world by remembering that Ishvara is there everywhere. It is that Ishvara in the form of Saguna Rupa, you know, in the form of everything that I see. The finiteness, when I remember that finiteness and recognize through this finiteness, they are representative of that infinitude, you know, then I will be, it's very easy to attain that Ishvara. And that is really the goal of our life. Okay, that is what he's saying. But he reminds us in 15th shloka that if I don't remember that finitude leading to infinitude, you know, and that finitude leading to infinitude, I can have it in this Janma itself through this Shravana, through listening to all these lectures and paying attention to my, through Mananam and Nididhyasam, where I'm reminded of my infinitude. When I do that, I'm good. You know, this world is a wonderful place. However, he reminds us that if I recognize that this happiness that I am thinking is there only in all these temporary things, where I've superimposed that happiness on these temporary things, then what happens is this same world can be a dukkha alayam. Dukkha alayam ashashvatam. He's reminding, why is it a dukkha alayam? Because it is very temporary. So in this place of, and he calls, if I recognize this world with its glamour, where everything is temporary, that is really my real world, it can be a dukkha. And so he says, having attained me another birth in this place cannot happen for those people who have recognized what this world is about. So this is the context for which I wanted us to think about, why is this samsar a dukkha alay, you know? Why this is, you know, why is it that most of us, we tend to live in this world in the pursuit of things which we think is quite normal, you know, having a house, having a beautiful garden, having wonderful relationships, you know, these are the normal things that we are doing. But then, even among all of us, we have figured it out that those things can be a little bit of an issue for us. So this kind of a thing where we discuss as an issue, we start to practice what we say is a detachment. We are living in this world, we are enjoying it, yet we are aware of what are the defects if I get too absorbed in the world, if I get too entrenched in thinking that this is it, if I don't have this house, if I don't have this, my life is done. If I have that kind of an attitude, then yes, there is a lot of defects that I need to face. Okay. So that is the part which I had put this 6 defects last time. Okay. And I think Meena was the one who said, it will be good for us to have a little bit of discussion of why it is. And I think it was very, very powerful.
Yes.
That question, right, Meena? So, which is why I wanted to bring this up today and go through it one at a time. And she had specially asked about, the association with temporariness. But I think it is worthwhile for us, and through a little bit of discussion, which is what we are going to do today, And
Okay.
of course, we will go through the other shlokas also, which I had in mind. But this, we will spend a little more time. So we said there are essentially 6 defects today, which is association with pain, association with temporariness. There is a dependence on things. And this part of it, I will spend a little more time because I think I saw today Preeti join in. I think this is Preeti Pragnya, right, Preeti?
Yeah, Hari Om Aunty.
Wonderful to see you, Preeti. So I think you'll be able to relate to one of them here today. So that's why I thought, we'll spend a little time. Then we'll see what is draining India's dissatisfaction guaranteed and relative importance. Okay. So let's take one at a time, which is association with pain and association with temporariness. Now, I did say that, this world is such a wonderful place. Every time there is so much amount of innovation going on. There is so much to look up to, and of course, it's beautiful world and everything. But what do we mean by that same world, which is giving me so much of joy? Why do I say that it is associated with pain? Okay, that's the first question we're going to take up. So, any thought on this before I explain exactly why we say about association with pain? So, I just want to hear from all of you about why do you think if you agree with the statement or not. First of all, with the statement that the world is filled with pain.
Hari Om,
Yes, Anand.
Sunita ji. Yeah. So the world has 2 aspects. Ka is sky, but again Sukha and Dukkha, which is there is Sukha, then at some point again, the same thing can cause Dukkha. So, the association with pain happens inevitably.
Okay.
I mean, there could be some variation between them.
So what you're saying is, in a sense, everything that, if I understand what you said, Anandji, everything that we are facing in this world, there is both Sukha and Dukkha, correct?
Yes, I mean, as a simple example, I like gulab jam. What happens after I eat 15, or if I eat, more? At some point, then it causes, pain in some way.
That's right. Very good. Yeah. So the first taste, or even before I put the gulab jamun in my mouth starts watering. It is already expecting that sukham from the minute I put it on my tongue. But then as soon as I put it on my tongue, I don't enjoy it. I start dreaming about the other 50, which is there in the bowl sitting in front of me, right? And my hand automatically goes to the second one. Even then, I really kind of enjoy it. But then I go for more and then it causes dukkham. Big time. It leads to really big time diabetes and all that stuff. That's right. Any other thoughts? So, as Anant pointed out, this is with something that we don't have it on a regular basis, correct? I mean, we don't have gulab jamun every day, but then we eat this one. But here we are talking about something which, again, Anand pointed out that, everything in this world uh, actually has both these aspects associated with it. Both sukham and this. They're almost like these two sides of a coin. Starting with, let's take our food, basic thing. Let's take a basic thing as food, right? Now, in order to get food, we go to Myers. I gave this example last time. We go to Myers to pick up, some food. Of course, if we pick up things like vegetables and all that, that's great. But if I want to go to I don't have any time at all. Okay, so I go to the thing, I pick up frozen food. Okay, when I do get the frozen food, frozen peas or whatever, instead of buying the fresh peas, it gives me great happiness because I can make my peas masala or something very quickly. Okay, but the same peas masala comes in a box or something like that, a plastic box. Okay, this plastic box, we don't think about it in the beginning. We think, oh, this is making my life so easy, and I can get in this plastic box here. But that same plastic box with the peas, when I put it into a microwave, guess what happens, right? There is some amount of leakage or whatever the materials which are there in the plastic. And the same peas now has a little different flavor to it. It is now mixed with some amount of pain. What was there? It gives me a certain amount of pain because, Madhu, I think your thing has to be muted. Okay, I'm going to mute you. Yeah. So that same pain leads to some amount of cancer in the future. Okay. What was so easy for me to do things in the future leads to a lot of pain. So, we talked about diabetes in the previous one. Now we are talking about things like cancer. So I remember when I was young, I used to carry my tiffin box in a stainless steel box, right? Then at some point, the plastics came. It was so easy to carry a plastic box with me to my school or college where I went to, because it was lighter. But now that same plastic has become so it's proliferated so much. Now we literally have to have associations where we don't, like, for example, we are building a new campus. We are trying to make it almost plastic free, consciously now, something which never existed before. Now, consciously, I have to create a mindset where I have to take that thing out, because same thing which gave me joy in the beginning, now it is giving me a sort of pain. Now, this is with simple thing as food. Now, what about my house? When I bought the house, brand new home, I built it with so much amount of love and everything. Okay, 4-5 years, great. But then after 5 years, I see some issue or the other cropping up. And after 20 years, I already have to almost replace everything, in the kitchen, because of my love for change. And of course, you have all these tile house and Home Depots and all coming up with new designs, right? Same thing. Then let's take a little more thing which is more closer to our home, more emotional kind of a thing. Family. Okay. I wanted a family. I wanted children. And I wanted, but once I have children, I have to think about everything. There's so many worries. I have to think about what school to take them. I have to make sure that there is a Balavihar close by. I have to make sure there is hospitals and doctors and so many things, That doesn't mean I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't have a family. We should have a family. But the way we look at our own families and everything, the attitude with which we have has to be the right attitude, right? Otherwise, everything can be a lot of work. So this is what we mean by association with pain. Any thoughts on this? So
attachment and attachment
Yeah,
and losing the things or positions or people.
exactly. So that pain that we are saying here, it is, once I acquire something, so then once I acquire, I want to preserve it and keep it exactly like the way I got it. And I don't want to lose it. Madhuri, you said it beautifully. It is, the pain is in the loss of it. Oh my God, what if I lose it? You know, that, so that acquisition, along with the preservation and along with the loss, is where we are talking about this first defect, which is association with pain. Okay. Everybody good with this? Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Now let's come to the point that Meena was asking, which is association with temporariness. Again, whenever I get anything, it goes back to the same thing. I expect it to last forever, but it's very, very critical that I have to recognize that anything, the second I buy it from a store, if I can just have the attitude with me, that I'm going to the store to buy the TV, the best TV. Can I just go with this attitude that, yes, I bought this TV, this is great, but let me also remind myself that this is not the permanent thing. This is not the permanent thing. Can I go with that? Because for sure that TV is not going to last for more than maximum 3 or 4 years. There's going to be something new coming out. This is why in US it's so sometimes wonderful, because even as you take something out of the door, like they say, right? The second you buy a brand new car and you take it out of the door, already that car has lost whatever, I don't know, it's 10% of its value or maybe up to 30% of its value. The second you take it out of that, you drive out of that dealership, it is that temporary. So same thing with food. We order this pizza, we love it, and what happens is this pizza creates that big longing for it, and that longing lasts with me for a long time. But the pain that has gone to having the pizza, and which is the one that causes the pain, right? So, but it is such a temporary thing. I have superimposed my happiness on the pizza and I expect it to last for long, but actually it is very fleeting. So constantly my happiness is with something which is very, very fleeting, and that is where that temporariness comes in to play. Is I have to recognize myself that anything, even this iPhone that you get, the second we had, you guys gave us a gift of this i12 phone, immediately within, even as you are, even as Apple launches the iPhone i12, they're already working on something like i14 or something like that. They plan out all these things. We don't know that. They just put so much amount of advertising so that you'll buy the i12, but within 3 months, that i13 is going to come out, i14 is going to come out. And that's the way we have to really seriously think about a lot of these things. But we don't. We are just so attracted by the glamour of it, and we just buy it. Any thoughts on this, Meena?
Yeah, now I can understand it a little bit more detail, actually.
Yeah,
Harvam,
Yes, Anand, please.
Yeah, just with the temporariness on the same lines. In Bhaj Govinda, it said like, Makuru dhanajana yavana garvam haratanimeshat kala sarvam. So the time will take all of this in a moment. So that kind of,
Yep.
the Mohamudgara. So Shankara was saying that.
Correct. And the third and the fourth line on that shloka is also very important, which is Maya
Maya,
Mayam idam akilam buddhva brahma padam tvam pravisha viditva. Right?
right?
Uh-huh.
They're saying what is temporary and what is permanent. They're saying in the sloka.
Correct. Correct. Everything is nothing but Maya. At the end of the day, everything is nothing but the glamour. So this association with temporariness is the important thing, is to recognize that ultimately everything appears glamorous, right?
But it's all Maya.
It's all Maya. It's all pure Maya.
Yeah, correct.
Now, if we say it is Maya, it sounds like a very big word for us, and we don't necessarily recognize it.
Yes.
But then the minute we say it is associated with temporariness, then it becomes a little more.
We are thinking about it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for explaining.
No problem. You're welcome. So let's move on to the next two, which is where I'm going to request Preeti here to say a few things, So Preeti, sorry to put you on the spot, but this is about cause dependence, okay? The idea being that today, for us, we are so dependent upon things. Without this, sometimes we feel our life is gone. And I can tell you, with the most practical thing that I was facing this morning also is about the Wi-Fi. Okay. I mean, I'm usually in my room where the Wi-Fi has been working quite well, I would say. I mean, yes, I've had issues, but I've got so dependent in it. And this dependence on the Wi-Fi did not make me think of alternatives, I was so stuck on the fact that I have Wi-Fi in my room. All I have to do is connect my computer to it, and things are going to work. Another thing which we have got so dependent upon is the phone. I'm ever since at least I've come here to India, I find that my service has not been good at all. I will call somebody and it will not ring on the other side at all. I have to call at least 3 or 5 times until that number really registers in the service. And then, I can hope that my service will be good. Same, and the call keeps dropping. The call, it doesn't, what should I say? It's not very clear. And people keep telling me that, what, your voice is sounding broken. We've become so dependent on things. As long as I was in US, these things, you take it so much for granted. So the point I'm coming to, and which is why I wanted Preeti to say a few things, is, our generation. So in many of you who have joined here, we are like 50 plus. When we were young, we never had social media. But today, at the level, where Preeti and her younger ones are, social media is a huge thing. And in social media, if I were to post a picture and nobody says anything about it, I'll be like, oh my God, nobody's liking it. Nobody has posted a comment. Are they thinking that I am, what am I doing with posting these pictures? That kind of thing, So there is such a dependence. There is a dependence on a particular cause to give me happiness, and that's how our world has been. So, Preeti, do you have something to say? Has this become even worse on how you depend on things?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm probably not the right person to give an example because I don't post on social media for this exact reason.
Good for you. Good for you. But
Because
you
yeah, you're
probably
right.
in your ecosystem, you see this
Yep.
happening more, right?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. I may not post, but I see other people posting, and we automatically look at who has commented. What did they comment? Did anybody like it that I know? Yeah, it's a big problem, and I think it's just going to get worse, unfortunately. And that's a really, really good example. Just the way that our world today is going is we're so dependent on the phone. We're so dependent on network and being, even LinkedIn networking. We're so dependent on that it's become such a difficult, it's unheard of now that if you go out to meet people, it's all on the internet, all online. And that's very difficult to step back from, to kind of go back to when we don't have power, So it's very difficult to go back to that. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. So this, the 6 defects that I have here is, in a sense, and how we are looking at the same world, which if we can look at it differently, we would be in a much better place as far as mental health is concerned. This morning, I was reading some reports about childhood depression, about how this whole thing of mental health is percolating down to not just our teens or young adults, but to child, and where is that coming from? This is one of the big causes, this dependence on a particular thing, without which I'm like, my world is done, my world is gone, I cannot live without it, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, to add to that, Sunita, also about our contact numbers. We used to
yes.
memorize and remember everything. Now we rely on that iPhones, and we have it in there. If it is somewhere else or something, the phone, then we think like, I can't even remember my neighbor's phone number or anything. So many numbers we used to memorize, and
Absolutely.
that's the one, I think. Yeah,
Yes.
dependence. Yeah.
We have lost a memory power, actually. Swami Chimanandam, I remember an incident reading about this, on how when he went, I think when he came to US or something, he lost his book of his address book. And he was a person who was so prolific in writing letters to all the devotees who would write to him with any questions. And he could remember the 300 addresses that was there in the book, which he had lost. And today, we cannot even remember our own phone number. I cannot remember my India phone number. Every time I have to look up my phone to check what my number is. It still has not registered in my mind. That's how bad we are getting to it now, So the point again is that we have become so dependent on things to give us that happiness. Ultimately, we live in this world for getting some happiness. And unfortunately, we have put that happiness, or our own idea of happiness, on things which are very temporary, which are impermanent, which of course means the same thing here, but also we are dependent on things which are temporary. So that is what this causes dependence thing is about. So this next thing, which is draining indriyas, is we are again putting our happiness on things which is draining away our power, literally, like how, we use this phone, for example. If I use this phone only to call people, the battery on this phone will remain there for a long time. But guess what we do? We put a lot of apps in there. We watch YouTube on this phone, and we save a lot of movies or video clips on this phone. All this just drains our battery, right? So too with our own human mind, we are given all these 5 sense organs and our mind and our intellect to use it for the right purpose, which is we've been given the sophisticated equipment in order to reach our highest goal, which we don't, for many of us, we don't realize what is that goal all about. And we keep our goal to, earn a lot of money, buy a big house. That is what we think is the highest goal. However, our human body is given for reaching the highest goal of perfection. And in this process, we are not using our equipments well, and we are draining our power. Okay, we are draining our power by small things, which are fleeting things. Like I said, just like how we use a phone to, if I use it for the right thing, which is to call, great. But I use it to for all these temporary things. So my battery gets drained. So too within us, our own things are draining so much. Our indriyas are losing its power. And another thing which we don't understand is, or not that we understand it, but we don't recognize that as an important thing, is as we grow older, our eyes loses its power to enjoy or whatever. But then, and same thing with our mouth, right? I mean, we lose the digestive power and everything, but then our tongue is still craving for a lot of these things. A classic example, sometimes people who are very diabetic, they have not lost the ability to, enjoy the sweets, but then the body cannot handle the sweets. So what do? They will say, no, you know what, anyway, I have this pill. I can just take 2 of my pills and take the sweet. But, they have not recognized that the power within themselves has diminished. So we are not using the indriyas at the right time for the right things. And as we grow older, we lose its power, So this is another, all these, we have created a bondage, to all these things which are so temporary again. Any thoughts on draining indriyas? Okay, the last 2, dissatisfaction guaranteed. So the point again is, we don't recognize that each one of these things that we think we are enjoying, there is just no question that at the end of it, there is some amount of dissatisfaction, which is why we go for something new, right? I mean, with my same iPhone, for example, at the moment, if I find that somebody has a better phone and it can do a lot more, I become dissatisfied with what I have. Okay. So my initial excitement of getting an i12 now goes completely away, because I find that this is not going to give me the satisfaction completely. So ultimately, the idea is, and even with our own jobs and everything, if I'm working only for the sake of my work and not worrying about what I'm going to get, then I'll be satisfied. But what do? I get this job for $100,000. And after some time, I'm not very happy because somebody else gets something better than me. So then I'm looking for something which can give me $120,000, $200,000. The thing just goes on and on. I'm just not, happy with it. And then the last one, which is relative importance. So I forget the fact that everything is relative. In some sense, this iPhone example, which I say, it's today, it may give me some importance, but tomorrow there is something else. I'm always in this point of comparing things, where there is only a relative importance today. It's only, as long as it gives me satisfaction, it's great. But the second something else is there, this loses its importance. So these are the 6 kind of defects that I thought I should, put this here, which is why this world is a dukkha alayam, for that reason. Otherwise, it's a wonderful place. It's a wonderful place where I have come into this world to exhaust my own purva karmas. That is why I've come to this world. But the world also is charming in all these things, and I get attracted to it. And this is one of the biggest obstacles, in fact, the obstacle for us to not recognize Ishvara, to not recognize that ultimately this whole world is nothing but Ishvara in its finite form. So this is why we have to recognize that
After
as long
seeing
as
Hari Om, after seeing
go
all
ahead.
these things, no, Hari Om. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Meena. Go ahead, Meena.
After seeing all these 6 things, no wonder why it is said this world is the Dukkali for sure, right?
Yes, exactly. And that is why seeking, so you see how as long as I'm stuck in the world, I'm dependent, I am dissatisfied, I'm constantly looking for something to fulfill me and to make me completely full, but then that fullness can be obtained only if I change the direction of my pursuit, and to recognize that at the end of the day, when I recognize that there is nothing but God, everything is nothing but Ishvara, everything is nothing but that absolute consciousness, that reality, that Krishna, and if I recognize that and recognize that that is the only attainment I need to have, then I will focus my complete attention on the process, not on the goal. I recognize that God is my goal, but now I focus on how I can get there, and that can happen. Like I said, each one of us, because we don't have to do much. In the sense, our purva karmas are already pushing us forward. For somebody, it may be that the person is going to be a CEO. For somebody else, is going to be a scientist. For somebody else, they would be, given a position and an ecosystem where you are just working, doing the best of your skills. It's up to us. And it doesn't matter whether it is Preeti who is working hard there, or Anant who is, maybe he has a few more years towards retirement. It doesn't matter. We just need to recognize what my skill set is and how my skill set can give me happiness, and focus on that. That's all I need to do. Everything else is already taken care of, and that, of course, can be a beautiful subject another time where we can go a little more detailed into it. But the idea is our goal is actually already set. It is up to me to recognize that Ishvara is my final goal, So that's why this thing is, the thing about the message for today is, the shloka which says, Yam Yam Bhavam Smarati, Tam Tam Bhavam Prapnoti, as a person thinks, so he becomes. So all I need to worry about today is really, really to think about what am I thinking all the time? How can what I think can lead me to the proper action, and how those actions can finally lead me to becoming a habit. And once I develop some good, strong habits, then that is going to become really part of my character, and that character will really build my destiny and prepare me for my next life, if I want a next life. And this chapter, in this 8th chapter, he literally tells us it is really a choice. I can, in this world itself, literally through understanding of this philosophy completely, give up completely. Like, I can totally sublimate. I don't need another life. I can get that over here. Or he gives you the alternative. He says, okay, the other thing for you, what you can do is work in this world in such a way that you totally recognize that it is only Ishvara that I'm looking for, and it can be a finite form, that it's Krishna, it's only for Lord Krishna I'm developing. And if I do that, when I die, then I can go to all the way up to Brahmaloka. And that is, we'll come to those shlokas now. We can go all the way up to Brahmaloka. Okay. Then when I go to Brahmaloka, Brahmaji, Lord Brahma, who is there, the creator, he will give me the knowledge. He will at that moment also give me this knowledge. And once I have the knowledge, I will get to the same level of realization. Okay. But just going to Brahmaloka is not enough. That's what he will say. Going to Brahmaloka, he will give you the knowledge, but if you choose even at that moment to just be in that highest form of enjoyment, because of some of the vasanas that you still have, you may come back. Okay, so it is not guaranteed that once you go to Brahmaloka, you will be completely realized. That won't happen. Ultimately, even you can go to Brahma and realize, that is one aspect, but you can realize the ultimate self here itself. And through this kind of, practice, one can realize here itself. So either ways, he says, you really have no choice, in the sense you have to remember Ishvara all the time. That is the ultimate thing. So that is where we talked about the shlokas of 11 to this one, is about Krama Mukti, is where, so you have two muktis possible. One is Jivan Mukti, which is as a Jiva here, you can liberate, which is where the three Mahatmas, in fact, the next shlokas will talk about. But Krama Mukti is going to Brahmaloka and then doing, going through liberation there. So like in shlokas 12 and 13, basically is about on how the liberation he's talking about, the Krama Mukti part of it. And here, this Krama Mukti he talks about is while you're exiting, okay, you can think about the most simplest one is a chanting of this Om, where by this is, he would depart, such a person goes to this Brahmaloka with this Om Anusmaran, he says this. And here he's saying about Ananya Chetaha Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashaha Tasyaham Surava Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yoginaha. We saw the shloka before about how, somebody who is completely only chanting this Om, that person goes there and he, we saw all this. Then in 15, we saw this one. So he's trying to say that that person will not have rebirth, but that person will have, then this is why we took this whole thing on Dukkha Alayam, Punarjanma is not possible for somebody who has completely realized that. Then in 16 to 22 is where we started seeing about the, what are the worlds, okay? Now, again, something we need to think about is, in a way, this is different from how maybe a Christian faith could talk about, which is, we don't believe that, there is heaven above the clouds. We only know that above the clouds, the rocket can go up the moon, okay? That's how we look at the aspect. Anything and everything is actually here itself, okay? But the point is, those worlds are different. So we saw, he says, Abrahma Bhuvanat Lokaha Punaravritti Norjuna Mau Pethitu Kaunteya Punajanma Navidyate. So he's trying to show here about how literally, this Bhuhu is the earth. So above Bhuhu, you have this 7 worlds, Bhuvaha, Swaha, and etc. So these are the total 7 higher worlds. Then you also have the lower worlds. So in all these worlds, this Jiva, we call this Jiva. Jiva is referring to the aspect of, the subtle body with all the vasanas, the mind, the intellect, everything, that is a Jiva. which actually, of course, when on earth, it takes on the gross form and then lives here, right? So here we have, so we talked about that jiva has the opportunity to travel between all these 14 worlds, okay? But in all these 14 worlds, it has the aspect of looking at Ishvara in the Saguna form, okay? Now, while on earth, that jiva has the opportunity to recognize that it is beyond anything which is gross, subtle, etc., and be one with Ishvara. But that same jiva has this opportunity to travel through all the 14 higher, through all the 6 other worlds, and go to Satyaha Loka. Satya Loka is the Brahma Loka. And this is where that jiva, having exhausted everything, has an opportunity to now be completely only in that knowledge and realize when Brahmaji's term gets over, okay? So until then, you have that opportunity to realize. But at the same time, if that person who is not completely with the knowledge now can also, go up all the way up to earth and come down, all that is also possible. That is what he wanted to show here. So in Brahma Loka is where, he says that even attaining the Brahma Loka is not permanent, which is what I said. If I don't, if I'm not alert, if I'm not completely bought into this, then there's a possibility that I can come down to the lower earths. So this is where now there is a description of how the Brahma Loka looks like. Is Brahmaji like us, or is Brahmaji different? This is where these 2 shlokas, 17 and 18, actually talks about the Brahma Loka, which is, he says, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, Ahar Yad Brahmano Viduhu, Ratrin Yuga Sahasrantam, Teho Ratra Vido Janaha. So he says, the Brahmaji's day, one Brahmaji's day is about 1,000 yugas. Okay, 1,000 yugas is one Brahmaji's day, and his night is 1,000 yugas. Now, you may say, who did research on this? Maybe from a youngsters crowd, maybe Laya or somebody I can imagine Laya asking this question, but Grandma, how do you say that, why do you say that this one, who really discovered this? Has it been written in some book? The point is here, the last line says this, the realized ones know this to be the day and night. So only somebody who is outside the periphery of a Brahmaloka would have found this. So this shloka is so powerful, this itself proves, for example, the Western way of looking at things is that anything, whatever I see, through my eyes, whatever I can measure with the telescope, only that I will believe. I don't believe there is something called as a subtle body, youngsters may say that, or, not necessarily youngsters, but anyone who is not bought into this philosophy would say that, how do you know there is really a subtle body? I know you and I can automatically say that because we know that it is only because of a subtle body that this body is functioning. The minute I die, I know that there is, my body doesn't function. How is this body even functioning? It is functioning with something inside, which is giving the power to speak and everything, isn't it? So that itself proves that there is some subtlety to this physical grossness, correct? But in this shloka, what he's trying to say is that not only are we talking about the subtlety of the mind and the intellect and everything, but we are talking about the fact that there are different worlds. All this is actually already been given. This is from, our own Shastras. And not only that, somebody has to be outside a Brahmaji's day to know that there is 1,000 yugas. And I can tell you, if you look at how much is one yuga, so we are talking about 2,000 yugas is one Brahmaji's day. And let us see how much is one yuga. So one of the yugas is equal to 4 parts, which is Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Okay. So we are still literally within one of Brahmaji's day. Okay. Not even forget about his night. His night is another 1,000 yugas. And we are actually in this Kali Yuga. We are somewhere in the middle of Kali Yuga. Somewhere I did come across, I'll try to see if I can find next time about where we are in this Kali Yuga. Okay. Kali Yuga itself is 432,000 years. So this whole 4 things makes up one yuga, and 1,000 of these yugas is actually one day of Brahma. And this one, our Mahatmas, only a realized person who is outside this day of Brahma actually could have calculated this. So you see, our rishis were scientists beyond imagination. Today we give Nobel Prizes and everything to scientists who achieved something in the material world. But our rishis were, I don't know, 4.32 billion times, I guess, better rishis who could figure out this kind of a calculation, But okay, this is great. Knowing about all this calculation is great, but what does it really mean to me, right? So the significance of this shloka is basically trying to show that, is really emphasizing that every thing that we do really has a great significance, in the sense, through our actions, we can choose to go upward in our lives and choose in the choice of the lokas. Today, we choose to go to US, we choose to go to, we think that is a higher world for me, or I choose to go beyond US to maybe there is, Belize and those kind of places which are even more perfect and everything. But all that is still only in the material world. We can actually choose to, every action that we're doing can propel us to take us forward or lower, right? So this whole thing is possible, but all this is possible only if we start to cultivate that detachment from the world. And that is why the 6 defects were shown about how this world, what it is about. Slowly and slowly, we have to develop the vairagya to move forward. So this, again, the shloka number 18 is trying to show, this actually really brings to, there is 2 aspects of this which we'll talk about, but the idea of what we are talking about here is the same Brahmaji. What happens is, when he sleeps, everything goes into a state of an unmanifest, just like how for us too, right? When we finish the whole day and I go to sleep, when I put my head on the pillow, what happens? I actually get into a state where my whole world is sort of collapsed. It's gone into a kind of an unmanifest form. The next day, as soon as I get up, the very first thought that comes to my mind is, I'm Sunita. The second I think about I'm Sunita, then what role I'm going to play, what am I supposed to do today, what is my to-do list, and who am I going to meet? The whole world just opens up into a manifestation. So that part of it, we'll discuss a little more next week. And so, but the shloka basically says, from the unmanifest, all the manifest proceed, and the coming of the day, and at the coming of the night, they dissolve into that which is called as unmanifest. So this is just gives you the process part of it. And I just explained that using our own day and night, but we will see this in the context of how Brahmaji's day and night is, which we saw earlier in the shloka number 17, but also in relation to the jiva's migration what happens to the jiva's part of it, and then we will discuss a little more about this whole aspect of liberation. Okay, so with that, I'll just stop here. I was hoping that I will probably go to one more, at least up to shloka 20, but they're all connected. We will do that next week. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. We stop the live stream.